And we're talking movies. A long time since I said to someone, take me to the movies, and got taken. Very good afternoon. James Luxford from the Radio Times and Metro here with some of today's offerings. How are you, sir? You all right?
I'm not too bad. You all right?
Yes, very well, thank you. So we have 3 films to go over here, which are all very different. One a comedy set in the beauty industry, one a very surreal horror about a plant, and then one about private ambulance drivers in Mexico.
Absolutely.
What a combo.
Yeah, it's a really diverse week to come out. We've got, there's plenty of superhero movies on the way, in case you're worried. But it is a good week for sort of diversity of titles, I guess.
Good, yeah, because I suppose, soon we get into summer blockbuster season, so it's nice to have just a little bit before for some good old
just a little break,
quality. Yeah. First film I'm going to talk about this afternoon is one called Like a Boss, which is our comedy we have out of these 3. It's supposed to be a comedy anyway. It's set in the beauty industry. Here's a little clip.
I'm Clara Luna. I am going to invest $1.7 million on you.
We would love $1 million.
But in my experience, business and friendship don't always mix.
You don't have to worry your pretty little head.
Okay, tell us about this one.
So it is Tiffany Haddish and Rose Byrne are very best mates who've built this beauty empire up from the ground in the way that only seems to happen in Hollywood films. It's very glossy business with all of their friends in it. And their friendship is tested when they are bought out by Salma Hayek, who is this big CEO, brash CEO of a big beauty brand. I didn't like this at all. I think it started out so well. There's so few movies you see where it's female leads who aren't kind of chasing after a man or a male character. These are people it's about their careers, it's about themselves, it's about their choices. Unfortunately, it is also about very crude humour and sort of pratfalls and things like that. And you'd think there's so much to say about the beauty industry and how it makes people feel and the way to satirise that and make it funny. But you're never too far from someone going, whoa, and tripping over. And you're just like, well, this could be clever. It doesn't need to be deep, but it could have something to say, and it just doesn't.
So it kind of lets itself down when it could have all gone so much better.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nothing worse than thinking about that for a film. Let's move on then to Little Joe, which is the horror starring Emily Beecham and Ben Whishaw. Have a listen to this.
Look what I have for you. What do you say we call him Little Joe? You have to take good care of it. Keep it warm. Talk to it. It needs attention.
What's so special about it?
It makes you happy.
Now, if you're not just freaked out by that, but how much more does that make you want to see this film? What did you think of this?
I really liked it. As you can tell from the trailer, it's about a scientist who comes up with a plant that makes you happy. However, she starts to notice that everyone who comes into the contact with the plant starts to behave strangely. Very creepy horror. Sort of think of something like The Lobster or Black Mirror in terms of tone. Everyone's kind of got this very clipped, very sort of awkward way of interacting with each other. The soundtrack is so unnerving, and you just think something really scary is just about to happen. And so, that Hitchcock thing of what's behind the door. And I really liked it. Ben Whishaw, Emily Beecham's fantastic in it. And Ben Wishaw's brilliant as a co-worker in it. It's just an exercise in dread, I think.
I noticed from the trailer just how sinister Ben Whishaw can really be. And having only really known him as either Paddington or Q from the Bond films, it's very odd, but also quite intriguing to see him behaving like that.
He's a very diverse actor, and he's done a lot in independent film and theatre. And we were just talking before we went on that how I saw him in Shakespeare in London doing Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, and obviously big, powerful speeches. And it took me about 20 minutes to get over that this was Paddington saying "Friends, Romans, countrymen." But he is a tremendous actor and really brings something to this story.
Yeah, because I think it's fair to say he's definitely not typecast, even though I'm just known for those 2 roles. He's certainly exploring all sorts here. And again, in this one, there's sort of the sinister, well, it looks like to turn out to be a sort of fairly sinister bad guy, and all of this seems quite intriguing. Okay, so that's Little Joe. The last film we're going to talk about is one called Midnight Family, which is more of a documentary, isn't it, this one?
Yeah, it's in Spanish, and it's set in Mexico City, where every night there are many times more medical emergencies than there are public ambulances. So this kind of cottage industry has arisen where private ambulances race to emergencies, pick them up, treat them, and then hope that the person at the other end can pay them. And it's if ever a documentary is a bit like a horror film in terms of what happens to a society when there aren't these institutions in place, when there aren't structures in place to take care of people, how quickly things fall apart. On one side, it's a very sort of warm and quite, dare I say, funny portrayal of this family running the ambulance and what they have to do to survive. On the other side, it is about just what happens when that care is not there. And there's a particular scene, anyone who sees it, with a baby, which had me like my hand over my mouth. It was really affecting.
See what you say about that kind of idea as you're contrasting emotions and feelings with that, with the whole idea of this, almost like this kind of black comedy about a family who essentially deal with injury and pain and suffering for other people.
Yeah.
But taking them into their world because they are competing, they are in a job and they need to feed themselves and everything else, and they will do whatever they can.
It leads to these awful face-offs where, they get to the end of this person being treated and they go, well, we were the first people on there, we are the only people there, here is your bill if you would like to pay. And a lot of people go, I can't, and some people go, I won't. And you're not sure who to feel sorry for because it is something of a hustle, if you like. At the same time, these people are just trying to make a living, and there's no easy answers in it. And I think that's what's so wonderful about a good documentary like this.
So which of the three is go and see as soon as you can?
I would say Midnight Family, and closely followed by Little Joe. But just avoid Like a Boss, I guess.
Which is wait till it comes to telly and record it if there's space left.
I think probably Little Joe if you're the sort of person who's a little squeamish, and just avoid Like a Boss.
There we go. Perfect. James Luxford from Radio Times and Metro, thanks for speaking to us this afternoon. There are your recommendations, you know what to do.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire Travel.